Welcome back, beautiful souls, to another episode of Awaken Your Authentic Self. What if everything you think you know about enlightenment and consciousness is actually a distraction from humanity's true purpose? What if the key to our collective awakening has been systematically hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone brave enough to speak the truth about our cosmic identity? Today, I'm absolutely honored to welcome someone who has dedicated over 25 years to uncovering humanity's authentic purpose and guiding us toward a new age of enlightenment. I want you all to meet Dean Graves, a remarkable meditation teacher, mental health counselor, and spiritual guide whose own awakening journey began at age 50 after decades of what he calls his typical American life. Through his dedicated meditation practice, Dean gained access to profound wisdom that has been repeatedly distorted or lost throughout human history. He's the acclaimed author of transformative books, including Enlightenment, Plain and Simple, The Identity Model, and The Enigma of Consciousness, along with being the host of two extraordinary podcasts, Simple Enlightenment and the incredibly unique Chatting with the Arturians. For over 2 decades, Dean has been sharing practical spiritual tools, specializing in trauma healing and PTSD work since 2008, with a mission to awaken humanity to our true potential and bring about a global experience of enlightenment. His work bridges ancient wisdom with modern healing, offering a path toward authentic spiritual awakening. Dean, welcome to our sacred space. I'm absolutely thrilled to dive deep into these transformational truths with you today.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I hope I can live up to it.
Oh, your work is remarkable, and I'm so excited to get into this interview with you. Dean, you mentioned that for 50 years, you lived a typical American life before beginning meditation around your 50th year. This is fascinating because many people assume spiritual awakening happens earlier. Can you walk us through what specifically shifted in your consciousness during those early meditation experiences that led you to discover this profound information about humanity's true purpose? What was the moment you realized you had access to teachings that had been systematically distorted and lost?
It was a process. My experience is exactly the same as everyone or anyone else will experience. I had an awakening about my 50th year, and an awakening is a grossly misunderstood concept. It is nothing more than the awareness that all of the stuff that you've been doing in your lifetime up to that point may have been deemed successful by conventional thought, but it's not making you happier. And with that realization, what is actually happening, and I became aware of this after the fact, so this wasn't all one bolt of lightning awareness. Our awareness is the inherent characteristic of the Creator that we are tasked with becoming at the range of consciousness that we all share. Okay. And while we are doing all of the things that we do in order to achieve success according to societal or conventional standards, that awareness is directional and it is pointed outside of us. And so what we are actually doing is trying to trick the world to give us more of what we like. And we are all motivated, all consciousness is motivated to get more of what it likes. What it likes will vary according to our experiences and, of course, where we are on the evolutionary path. But that's notwithstanding, that is our motivation, and that will be our motivation for the balance of our tenure in creation. But when you have an awakening, what you were doing is actually probably for the first time learning to invert that awareness from outside of yourself, where heretofore it has been a tool to manipulate the world, to direct that inwardly and begin to become aware of what it is that you have included in your perception of self, your identity, that is erroneous. It's always false. There is no identity that is true, but that is the platform from which we begin to fulfill our purpose in creation.
That is so profound and so absolutely true. And I myself, I had mine at 55. So I'm with you.
But
There definitely is no time frame on when it happens. It happens.
it can happen when you're 15, or it can happen when you're 90.
Right.
It doesn't matter when, as long as it happens.
Exactly. Now, Dean, you've been working with PTSD and trauma since 2008. Trained directly by Dr. Slavinsky, your work addresses not just surface trauma, but chronic underlying conditions that limit an individual's full potential. How do you see trauma and suffering as potentially transformative rather than just something to heal from? Is there a connection between working through these deep wounds and accessing or assessing higher states of consciousness?
No, absolutely. Every time that we have an experience, it is bringing us a message about ourselves that we are intended to learn. We are magnetic. We attract our experiences. They do not come to us randomly, but because we are magnetic, we attract the types of experiences that we need in order to become the awareness that we're tasked with becoming. Trauma is simply the extreme northern end of stress. And stress is our primary teacher. We learn more from things we don't like than things that we do like. And stress is a spectrum. It ranges from very minor. You may prefer cream in your coffee in the mornings, and one morning you're out of cream, so you had to drink your coffee black or drink tea. Very minor stress, but notwithstanding, is still on the stress spectrum. A trauma is the other end of that. It is something that so challenges our perception of self, our identity, that we are unable to process it at the time, and for a brief moment, we enter into a condition of shock. And that means that our awareness literally leaves our body. So anyone who has experienced or is experiencing the condition of shock, it is indicative that their awareness has actually escaped their body, and they are unable to associate the world around them until they're able to bring that awareness back inside of them. We perceive an experience to last some period of time, 30 minutes, an hour, some period of time. But the reality is that every perceived experience is comprised of dozens of thoughts. Mm-hmm. Every single thought is one that we have attracted, and every single thought in and of itself is a complete experience. And it is complete because before we can go to the next thought, the next experience, we have to adjudicate our perception of that thought. And the judgment that we make is not rational and logical. It is based purely upon what it feels like to us at the time. We either like it or we don't like it. That is all there is to an emotion. There is no emotion other than our decision with every single thought that it feels good and I like it, so therefore I want more of it, or it doesn't feel good and I don't like it, therefore I don't want more of it. When we experience and have an experience that the thought so challenges the authenticity of our perception of self that we can't make that decision, that becomes a traumatic thought. And so it influences, it determines the value of the entire perceived experience, and undoubtedly will be interpreted as traumatic. I've never worked with anybody that has more than 5 thoughts, 5 moments within a perceived experience that were traumatic, that they were not able to make that decision. Usually it's only 1 or 2 thoughts. Mm-hmm. And so the healing of the trauma is very simple. Is directing your awareness to that moment, focusing your awareness to that moment that you originally could not process, making that adjudication of either it feels good or it doesn't feel good. It doesn't matter which way that you choose, but you finish the completion of your experience. And once you do that, then the traumatic nature of the whole perceived experience goes away. And it's no longer traumatic. It just becomes another experience that you have had that brought you a lesson about yourself.
It's very funny. I mean, it's not funny, but it's very coincidental is more the word I'm looking for, because it's recently that I came to a conclusion that when I was younger, I went through these experiences that were extremely traumatic, and sadly multiple times. I was what I called a victim of rape. Let's just throw it out there and put it what it was. And it happened more than one time. And it was to the point where I said, what is it with me that I'm attracting it? And then I realized just recently, I was afraid of it happening, which is probably why it just kept kind of happening. And then all of a sudden, when I took back my own power and decided, you know what, I'm kind of done with this. And I don't want to be a victim to this type of thing anymore. I don't want to experience this anymore. And I took my own control back. That's actually when it stopped.
Yeah, and that's the way it works. But those type of experiences, more often than not, are pre-incarnational agreements that we have with other people that we'll be encountering in the course of our experience. And if you understand that we're tasked with becoming awareness at this range of consciousness, but we're also tasked by virtue of the overall design of creation to begin to prepare ourselves to do the work of the next range of consciousness. In this range of consciousness where we are tasked with becoming awareness, the next range of consciousness that we will experience through is becoming love.
Right.
Love is the next inherent characteristic of the Creator that we will be studying by virtue of having incarnations and perpetuating our experience. But so what you do to prepare to explore the next range of consciousness is you have to use awareness in order to become aware of first sympathy. You have sympathy for others, and you begin to break down those barriers of perception of separation, and then compassion. And we perceive that we are also able to become I lost my word for a moment, to feel what other people are feeling and be empathic. But we do not have that capacity. What we are actually feeling when we perceive that we are being empathetic is we are establishing a harmonic resonance within us that coincides with usually the lower vibration that the person that we're being empathetic with is feeling.
Right.
So that again becomes an even more intense opportunity for us to become aware of what it is within ourselves that we need to heal, because we still are able to establish that harmonic resonance with another person of a lower vibrational energy. The next range of consciousness, that will transform into literally being able to feel what another feels, which will at that time also provide us with the opportunity to affect healing in another person. In this range of consciousness, we're not intended to heal another person. It's an individual journey from beginning to end. But the next range of consciousness, we transcend that and form a much more cohesive group, eventually ending up in a social memory complex, which perceives itself as an individual autonomous entity, as we now in this range of consciousness perceive ourselves to be autonomous beings.
That is very profound. That is very, very, very profound. Now, I'm very interested in your podcast, Chatting with the Arturians. It presents conversations with a celestial being who speaks through a vocal channel. This is incredibly unique in the spiritual space. Can you share how this communication works from your perspective? What specific guidance have the Arcturians shared about humanity's role in the Federation of Planets in service to the one infinite creator? And how does this relate to your mission of bringing about a new age of enlightenment?
Well, the new age of enlightenment requires information. Um, we we have, as a population, the earthly population has been deprived of truthful information for a long, 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 long time. And so consequently, we have a lot of misperceptions that are foundational and pervasive. And these are the tools by which we have been restricted or actually prevented from evolving. And that's why we have cycle within cycle of lower consciousness levels for the practically the entire term of our existence and participation in creation.
Right.
The Arcturians are, well, if you understand, I need to be redundant here for a moment
Sure, absolutely.
to explain. Creation has expanded in groups of characteristics of the Creator, archetypes of the Creator. And there are, that I'm aware of, there are 32 archetypes, 5 of which are the inherent characteristics of the Creator. In other words, those are delineated aspects of the one infinite Creator. All the other archetypes are distortions of those 5 inherent characteristics. Our galaxy, which is from higher consciousness perspective, is a universe. We are a 9-star, 9-archetype galaxy, which means we have expanded in groups of 9 stars, 9 archetypes at a time. Mm-hmm. So every time that there is an expansion, it's expanded by a group of 9 stars. Within this universe, there are a multitude of other 9-star systems that are, relatively speaking, self-contained and are creating their own experiences to fulfill their purpose in creation according to the limitations of these 9 archetypes. And there are some universes that have all 32 archetypes, but we just happen to be a 9-star archetype. The Arcturians are a sister 9-star system to our 9-star system. They've been in the process a lot longer than we have. And if you look at the shape of any galaxy, the stars that are towards the center have been there a lot longer.
Okay.
They're much more, not advanced, but they're much more experienced in their participation in creation. Those near the perimeter of the galaxy are the newer ones. We are near the outside perimeter of our galaxy, so relatively speaking, our entire 9-star system is relatively new compared to the Arcturians. So they're like a big sister or a big brother. They have been guiding us on our level of consciousness, as well as those ourselves in the future, which are a much higher range of consciousness than what we have capacity to conceive of at this range of consciousness. And so they have, for the extent of our existence, offered guidance as it has been received. Right. In other words, if we've been willing and have exerted the effort to make the communication with them, that guidance has always been available to us from the Arcturians, as well as the Pleiadians, which is another 9-star system, and Correct. There are other systems as well. But the Arcturians have been a principal contributor to our development and our experience. My significant other is by pre-incarnational agreement with me, is an Arcturian wanderer. Their home base is with the Arcturians, and so she is incarnated as a human with a much thinner veil, so she has the capacity to very easily connect with the Arcturians and be the channel for their guidance.
That is beautiful. That is Can I just ask, how did that come about? How did this first come about for you?
Well, it was a pre-incarnational agreement, and I was how we met, how we got together. I mean, she was off living her life, and I was off living my life, and she ended up in Memphis, where I am, and I was conducting groups to help teach people what I've learned, through my higher self, my guidance. And she actually was an acolyte to my teachings. And over the course of time, we had more of a realization of what our mutual roles are. So I'm kind of like I'm the Dean Martin of the Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis group. The people come to see her, and I'm the straight guy that asks the questions.
I love that. That's an amazing, amazing part of your journey. Let's talk about your books, Dean. Your books progress from Enlightenment, Plain and Simple, to Enigma of Consciousness. For someone in your audience who might be a soul-led seeker, but feels overwhelmed by spiritual concepts, how do you suggest they begin applying these teachings in daily life? What's the bridge between understanding these concepts intellectually and actually embodying them as lived experience?
Well, you have to learn to feel. Discerning truth from fiction is done by how it feels. If it feels right, just overwhelmingly so, then you know it to be truth. And you will get affirmations of that through the course of your daily activities. The books that I've written are actually increasingly informative, depending on, and they weren't intended to be like that. It's just how they developed. The Enlightenment, Plain and Simple, is written for people that are just they're curious, but they haven't really gotten any information yet, and they really haven't delved into the process. And so it gives you some basic tools that you can use in order to effect some of the healing necessary in order to lighten your load and be open to more information. But it does have lots of good information in it. The identity model is really descriptive of how we create this identity, why we create this identity, and how it affects our mind, and explains more of what a mind is and why we keep referring to a mind. My third book is Edifying Children of a Lesser God, which is the first book that really begins to challenge the dogmas and the ideologies that are so pervasive in our experience. And the Enigma of Consciousness, it full board challenges everything that we deem to be truthful, and it's predicated upon the depth of the information that I have gained, and that is actually confirmed by the Arcturians. So what we have done through our communications is taken the topics that are delineated in that book, and they've expanded upon that, elaborated upon that from their perspective, which is slightly different from some of the guidance that I have got, but not consequentially. It's inconsequential, but it does help the reader understand as they go through that and listen to the Arcturians that there are difference of perspectives even at the 6th and 7th density consciousness levels.
Wow. They sound extremely interesting, and I wish I would have had at least the first one when I started my awakening, because I had so many questions, and I really feel like I was forced to find a lot of things out on my own through downloads and messages. But a book would have definitely been helpful.
Well, it'd have been, yeah, for me too. It would have been a nice guidepost.
Exactly. Well, thank you for helping others. Now, you mentioned that the identity model specifically helps therapists and mental health professionals work with clients' unwanted conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us a concrete example of how this model works? How does understanding our true identity versus our conditioned identity change our relationship with anxiety, inadequacy, and other psychological challenges?
Ooh, that's a mouthful. Well, all consciousness learns by the process of analogy, by comparison and contrast. And so we have a multitude of experiences, most of which are experiences that we don't like. And that's purposeful, because we have to know what we don't like to know what we do like when we encounter it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I use the analogy: if you've decided that chocolate ice cream is your favorite flavor of ice cream, and when you go into the ice cream shop, you're going to go stand in front of that chocolate ice cream bin until you get your chocolate ice cream. So how did you determine that? Well, you had to taste most, if not all, of the other flavors of ice cream to narrow down that chocolate is undoubtedly your favorite and you're not deviating from that chocolate. And so we function according to what's called an archetypical mind. And an archetypical mind serves the entire galaxy. It is designed to guide the thought of the lower 5 ranges of consciousness, of which we are in the third of 8. Mm-hmm. But the top 3, 6th, 7th, and 8th are creator being densities. And so their function is to create and guide rather than to experience to the degree that we experience. We are the most intensely experiential density, mm-hmm. Range of consciousness. And we function very much under this archetypical mind design, which is nothing more than a blueprint of how we process thought. We all begin in what is called primordial darkness, which just simply means that we don't know anything.
Right.
We are a clean slate that we can write anything on that slate that we want to. And we perpetually, seemingly over and over and over, reincarnate into different lifetimes with different characteristics. We've been male, we've been female, we've been every color, we've been wealthy, we've been poor, we've been, you name it. Mm-hmm. By this time in our experience, we've done all of that. And each of those was intended to provide us with certain things that we needed to learn in order to fulfill the curriculum of this range of consciousness. One of the characteristics of the archetypical mind that begins every new reincarnation is unconsciousness, which we have to overcome, which is essentially what I was describing when you have an awakening.
Right.
And so you overcome that unconsciousness, and then you just begin to do the work. Until you get to that point, you're really not beginning to do the work. You're still experiencing all those other flavors of ice cream that you don't really like. And so from that point, you have firmly established an identity, which is nothing more than a perception of self, but it's also an ego mind. It is what we use in order to interpret our experiences. And we have available a much deeper mind, which we already are, which is our metaphysical self, our consciousness pattern that is our metaphysical self. But very seldom do we ever allow that to emerge because of the dominance of this ego mind.
Right.
And the identity. And so we have an awakening, and we learn to invert that awareness. We begin to become aware of what it is that we have incorporated into our perception of self that is perpetuating our experience of stress and suffering. And then we start healing that. We heal that by essentially a two-step process. One is learn the lessons of all the experiences that we have had to date that we did not learn at the time that we had the experience. And that has resulted in emotional baggage because we get to keep that until we learn those lessons that were important.
Yes.
And then our awareness escalates and we begin to become aware of the beliefs that we've incorporated into our identity, which is all an identity is just a bundle of beliefs.
Right.
And we start throwing those out as we become aware that they are perpetuating our attraction of the experiences that we don't like. And as we do that with each step of progress that we make along, and that is the enlightenment path, as we make progress, then more of our authentic self that is always there begins to emerge more and more completely. The more of our authentic self that is revealed, it's not created, it's revealed, the happier we get because our stress and suffering is reduced proportionally. Bliss is our inevitable condition of being. Bliss is defined as perfect happiness. It is nothing more than the absence of stress. And so all we have to do to enter that condition of bliss and stay there is dissolve this perception of self that is false, heal our emotional baggage, and be our authentic self.
That's the goal, right? That's the purpose of your work and mine is to get everybody to that point. Absolutely.
And it is inevitable. Everyone will get there. It's just a matter of when they're willing to do the work to get there.
You know, you say everybody will get there. I think I know a few people who are so stuck in their ways. And I'm talking like my family members who are up there in age that they just are so stuck that I don't see that awakening happening for them in this lifetime.
Well, you're looking at it from the perspective of time. And we're the only range of consciousness and the beginning ranges of the next range of consciousness that experience time. And that is part of our design, that we only have the capacity to process one thought at a time. So we perceive a linear experience that we can't transcend. Part of our experience of the next range of consciousness is that we will significantly dissolve this perception of self that is erroneous, begin to experience more of the love that we are, and we dissolve the need of the authenticity of the physical as well as the limitations of processing thoughts one at a time. So time is not linear, time is horizontal, it's lateral.
Right.
Everything is happening at one time.
Oh, absolutely.
And so consequently, that's just where they are in their experience. It may not happen in this lifetime. It may not happen in the next 10 lifetimes. It doesn't matter because inevitably, everyone is going to end up in the same place.
And that's probably pretty much how I've put it, and just in the sense where I don't know if it's going to happen in this lifetime, but I know they'll be back.
Yeah, well, whatever it takes.
Well, how do you bridge the gap between ancient wisdom traditions and modern mental health approaches? Do you see scientific research on consciousness, neuroplasticity, and meditation as validating or complementing the spiritual teachings you share?
Well, ultimately, they complement it. And again, there's a wide spectrum of understandings within the quote-unquote scientific community that is doing what we would consider to be scientific research along these subject matters and topics. Probably the most advanced that I'm aware of is quantum mechanics and quantum physics, but they really still don't understand that. They've come to the conclusion that nothing exists, that it's just our what we mentally decide exists of what functions and what doesn't function, which is true. But where do you go from there?
Right.
I mean,
right.
That's the basic point. That's the foundational point. And so they have a long way to go, but at least they're on that track to dissolve the attachment to the authenticity of the physical and consequently their participation in creation.
That makes perfect sense. Now, you've got 2 podcasts, and they serve very different purposes. One as channeled communication and one as educational content. How do you prepare for each type of episode? Like, what's your process for discerning between your own thoughts and guidance from higher sources?
Oh, it's very recognizable as distinct because my thought process is a hindrance to my understanding.
Really?
So the more I can get out of the way of it, then the more sense it makes not only to me, but in my explanation to others. The simple enlightenment is intended to be very didactic and to provide the information in listening form that people are ready for. It's very similar to the information provided in the Enigma of Consciousness book, and it's intended just to be another. If people don't read, they can still get the information by just listening to it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. Now, you speak of bringing about a global experience of a new age of enlightenment. What do you see as the biggest obstacles preventing humanity from collectively awakening? How can individual spiritual work contribute to this larger transformation?
Well, to coin a phrase that Mahatma Gandhi introduced, "Be the change you want to see in the world," is probably the most dramatic thing that we can do individually, because not only does it affect us, it affects all those around us, and vice versa. It creates a mirror for us to propel ourselves further down the path, by what successes that we may have in bringing others along and sharing of information. But humanity has a lot of obstacles that were not self-imposed. And those have been a hindrance to us. And the most significant limitation to our advancement spiritually has been interference by that portion of not only our population, but the creationary population that has chosen to not align itself with the Creator, but oppose itself from the Creator. And that only constitutes about 10% of the consciousness of population, but that of creation. But that notwithstanding, they have been very influential in the human experience, the human development. And so consequently, with that is the primary source of most of the misunderstandings that still are so pervasive and provide most of the hegemonies that limit our functioning as a population. And there are very definitive plans in the very near future to provide us with the resources necessary in order to contradict that and overcome those strategic limitations.
That's exciting and definitely something to look forward to. Because with everything that's going on today, I think what we definitely are in need of is a huge collective awakening.
Absolutely, and a lot of people are more ready than they realize, but they fear.
Yes,
and they don't have a perspective of who they are in relationship to what they want to be, want to achieve. All is one, and if you understand that and explore that, and that even is the basis of a lot of the spiritual teachings for as far back as you can go. You have to conclude from that we are not separate. We are the one infinite creator experiencing ourselves at this range of consciousness, and therein that is a redirection of our purpose to take advantage of the information and experiences that are available to us at this range of consciousness, because that is what we're supposed to learn. And the Buddha is often touted as the objective, but that was more an example
Right.
We're not supposed to be Buddhas at this range of consciousness. We're supposed to be striving towards that, but while we enjoy the journey. And the
Absolutely.
journey is the mission. It's not the end result.
I say that all the time to everyone who will listen. Like, life is meant to be lived. It's not meant to be survived.
And enjoyed.
Exactly. Oh, absolutely. Well, Dean, this conversation has been absolutely transformational for our community. Your courage to speak these profound truths about consciousness, free will, and our cosmic identity, along with sharing the extraordinary Arcturian communications, shows us we're truly standing at the threshold of a new era of human awakening. The way you've bridged ancient wisdom with modern healing approaches gives our audience a clear roadmap for genuine spiritual evolution. So, Dean, thank you from the depths of my heart for sharing your profound wisdom, your incredible courage to speak truth, and your extraordinary gift with our Awaken Your Authentic Self community. Your work is lighting the way for countless souls ready to awaken to their true cosmic identity and fulfill humanity's highest purpose. You've been such a beautiful guest today, and I'm so grateful for the truth that you've shared.
Thank you, Jessica. It's been my pleasure. I'm hopeful that maybe we can talk again and share more information with your audience.
I would absolutely love that. You give me a date and time, and we're making that happen.
Okay.
Well, beloved family, if this conversation has awakened something deep within your soul, and you're ready to begin or deepen your own journey toward enlightenment, I encourage you to start with Dean's introductory book, Enlightenment, Plain and Simple. Dive into his podcast, Simple Enlightenment and Chatting with the Arcturians, and visit his website to explore his trauma healing and counseling work. All of his links will be in the show's description. And beautiful souls, if this message of awakening resonated with your heart, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification so that you will never miss these transformational conversations. This has been another soul-stirring episode of Awaken Your Authentic Self. Until next time, beautiful souls, keep awakening, keep questioning the illusions, and keep rising into your fullest cosmic expression.